This is a DSi XL I'll be doing a round of testing on. Now, this is the last in sort of my final testing lot, but if I remember this one, I did fail it during the final test because the R button was having problems. R had trouble on shallow press. Need fourth test. Okay, so the only thing I had problems with was the R button. Like when I was, yeah, I do remember this. So when I was pressing down on the R button, I think it was, did I hit the actuation point of the button? I think maybe I just right when the button clicks, it wasn't receiving input, but if I pressed a little harder, it would, which as far as I'm concerned is sort of a miss input. So I did fail it. I cleaned the button, so I'm going to hope to see if that works. If that doesn't, then I'm going to I'll just go ahead and replace it with an OEM I have in stock, and then I'll have to cycle it through another round of testing just to make sure that that R button is good. Okay, so since I was putting it through final testing, I'm not gonna do a lot of stuff I usually do. So I have already confirmed the motherboard. I will open it up to just confirm it one more time. Never hurts to be thorough. But I'll already have tape over the ribbon cable connectors, so I won't need to do that. I am just gonna look up my information I have on this console just to double check. If I recall, this one had no problems, but assembled. I think it's my last blue one, so it's this one. I don't have any blue consoles currently in assembled state. Yep, okay. And then after this, I'm going to have to go through more initial testings on consoles that I've recently put together and haven't tested all the components. All right, motherboard has no issues. Oh, right, the top screen has some minor surface rust that I covered with Kapton tape to try and sort of contain it. That shouldn't be an issue. It was just mainly on the back. I think just whatever happened to this shell beforehand, probably some water got into the top upper shell piece, probably destroyed the top screen originally and soaked into that foam pad behind the screen and just sort of rusted out the screen. Well, actually, no, it would be the opposite. So that screen came from a console that had water damage, but the screen survives. Surprisingly. I think a lot of that is just luck of the draw, where water ends up. None of it got into the LCD housing, so the screen survived, but a little bit of the housing got water damaged. I'm usually, when I take these consoles apart, I fully separate all the components and sort of throw them in a pool. So none of these components came on this console specifically. I try to keep all the shell pieces together because they tend to fit better than to try and mix and match, but mixing and matching is usually sometimes the only option when I have broken shell pieces or other portions that are just beyond trying to save. Rust damage or if a hinge is broken, things of that sort. So let me double check my motherboard serial number. 2830612H01A 23T negative A50 or A49 A45. Okay, yep, that matches. I have tape over the two ribbon connectors, so I'm free to put this thing back together. I'll jinx myself by saying hopefully for the last time. is. This screw just has a little bit of crap on it. Try and get it off. A lot of the time, or some of the times, I find screws that are like this that just have, like, I don't know if it's like a coating or a plating that just kind of scrapes off. Or rusts off in some cases, but I suppose that's a little better. I'm not worried about the integrity of the screw, it's just kind of a little bit of caked on stuff. I am going to note the surface rust in my document here, so I don't forget to write it down. I did say minor rust, but I do remember it covering quite a large area. And really, covering it with Kapton tape, my main goal there was to try and keep it out of the spongy pad that's behind the top screen. I don't expect rust to kind of transfer to that area, but if that upper portion were to ever get wet again, it holds moisture because it's just like a foamy, spongy pad. I wonder if I have one nearby, just for illustration purposes. So it's just one of these. It's just a huge foam pad. It's not that thick, but it will definitely hold moisture. So hopefully isolating the rust away from that foam pad, as well as, well, hopefully nobody drops this thing into a toilet or something. Well, if you do that, you're not going to be worried about a little bit of surface rust. Everything will be compromised at that point. None of all the screens will have to be replaced. Anyway, confirmed the motherboard with the shell. Wrote down my note about the minor rust, so I guess we can go ahead and start the round of testing. I already put screen protectors on this. I did that last time during my final testing the first time. So what I'll be doing is just a round of testing. I'll start from down here with this column. So the motherboard, power board, tactile, touchscreen, speaker, mic, headphone, camera, charge port, game card, SD, and Wi-Fi. So I do want to double check something. I ran into this problem on another console I'm trying to sell. Is I missed a speck of dust. Oh, I didn't miss a speck. I missed a scratch on a touchscreen that distorted a pixel, which is usually a grounds for failure when I'm assembling these consoles, but I did not catch it, so I'm trying to see if it will, seeing kind of what the market will dictate, if that's a big deal for people. Worst comes to worst, I replace that touchscreen and put it back on the market. Okay. I don't see anything. Nothing obvious. So the first test I'll do is motherboard and power board. This is kind of a useless test because it wouldn't make it this far without passing this initially. But I like checking it off. I think it looks nice on a paper. In sort of my little testing protocol here, it looks nice when I check it off. So basically what that means is, does the console turn on? Yes. Does it make it to the menu? Also yes. Does it open up an application? Yes. That's all the test is. It would, like I said, it wouldn't make it this far in testing if it failed any of those. Next is tactile buttons. So this is where this console technically failed last time because the R button was having an issue. For that, I'll be using R4 card loaded up with some diagnosing software. Let me grab my stylus, which the software is called Diagnose or Diagno SE. And really what it does is I'll show you. Well, it'll become obvious. So it'll show a grid of all the buttons, and every time I press a button, it lights up. It's a lot easier for me to test rapidly than trying to do it in a game like Mario Kart or Pokemon. So what I'll do is just kind of press the button 10 so times, see if the button inputs match my rhythm. And I'm sort of using normal press inputs. Of course, this is somewhat subjective. Like, is my button input presses harder than others? It's really hard to say. It's how much I would press down if I were to play this console. I'm not so much worried about the face buttons. They're usually always fine, save for any console that experienced water damage. If you had something spilt on the face of the console, for instance, which is not very well. It is somewhat rare, but it happens. The one I'm really worried about is the R button, of course. Because if cleaning didn't work, then it stands to reason that there might be some corrosion in there that I just can't get out without either disassembling the button or just junking it, really. And this kind of goes with both shoulder buttons. I don't think they're necessarily wear out per se. I think they're just a little more susceptible to water damage, maybe just based on positioning and just how they sit inside the shell. They're kind of in their own little corner. So if any moisture got in, it would just kind of sit there with them. So the R button is responding to all my inputs. The problem it was having was shallow inputs. So let me try and do that. Pressing down very gently until I hit the actuation point. It does seem to be responding now. So it looks like that cleaning did work. I did clean it with 91% alcohol, and this has been a few days since I tested it. So that alcohol had plenty of time to dry. I'm just going to hang on the R button for a little while longer to see if I notice anything. I'm sort of pressing all around the button from the left side to the right side. Alright, well, I'm fairly happy with that R button. Try as I might, I can't get it to miss an input. So a little bit of cleaning was enough for it, it would seem. And then I'll do the L button. I don't remember having a problem with the L button. I'm not going to say I won't spend as much time with it, but I'm not going to be as, like, thorough. Because if it passed the last test I did, which was the third round of testing, then that was for me looking out pretty carefully at these shoulder buttons. Looking pretty carefully at these shoulder buttons, I should say. Go back to the R button just a little longer. Okay, I'm fairly happy with that. It's responding every single time. I really have no reason to doubt it. So next we have touchscreen. So that is, in a sort of similar vein, loading up my R4 card with diagnosing software. And really all the diagnosing software is this program which turns the bottom screen into a whole sketchpad. What I'll do is draw a perimeter. And it does an entire perimeter. So what I'm looking for here is if I were to, let's just say I go down here and there's like a jagged input like that, and nothing is responding in this zone, that would mean that touchscreen needs to be replaced. In this case, it is responding in this zone, for illustrative purposes, of course. So then I'll do swirls like this to see if there's any just like jagged inputs. No, it looks good. I wonder, is this... I never checked this. This is sort of my notes I keep with my... Well, I did check it. So trouble reading games. Okay. Once I put a screen protector in them, or on the consoles, the differences between an OEM and aftermarket touchscreen can be a little difficult to discern. But it did pass the touchscreen. I'm going to take out my R4 card so I don't forget it. Next is, I'm pretty sure, speaker, microphone, and headphone jack. So for that one, I sort of combo that with my SD card slot test. I figure that if the SD card can be read and play a piece of content off of it, then this slot is fine. Increase the volume. Check the microphone first. La 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 la. Works just fine. I usually check the microphone when putting these consoles together because if the microphone has problems, I don't want to try and replace the microphone on an already assembled console. It can be a little hard getting that wire through the hinge. So I open up my SD card. It looks like it's reading the song just fine. I'm going to listen to both speakers, and then I'm going to plug in a set of earbuds and listen to both channels to see if I hear it all the way through. When I'm changing the volume, I see the little software indicator going up and down. Buttons work. Software indicator works. Alright, both channels work. When I plug in the headphones, the speakers cut out like they're supposed to. I don't have the ability to test the microphone port. I figure most people aren't going to be using the microphone port as intended because it uses sort of a, as far as I understand, a proprietary connector. I don't have a DSI mic anyway, so I figure if everything else works, I have really no reason to suspect that doesn't work. But that's just one of the things I simply can't test. I just don't have the tools to do so. But I really don't even know what you would use the DSI microphone for anymore. Anyway, next is cameras. I basically just look, do the cameras initialize, and do they show a display? The cameras on the DSI aren't great, so I don't really look for super clear images, but as long as there's nothing out of the ordinary, as long as they initialize and show both cameras, then I'm good enough. Then it's good enough. I should probably stop folding this up so I don't have to unfold it every single time, or maybe I can just put it right over here. Next is charge port. So for that, I have a USB tester. Plug that in, let it boot. What I'll do is take my charger end and plug it in. Software indicators telling me it's charging. Console is saying it's also charging, solid orange light, and I'm also pulling amperage. Close the console, and then what I'll do is just sort of gently wiggle around the charge end in the console, seeing if I can get that orange light to turn off. Usually that means that either the charge port is damaged or a solder joint on the motherboard is cracked. Usually the scenario I imagine is if you have this charging on your desk and it gets bumped off, hits the floor charge end first and snaps a solder joint, or just breaks the charge port. In this case, I can't get it to turn off, try as I might, which is, of course, a good sign. Next, the game card slot. All right. So this one, if I recall my notes, this console did fail one game during test 2. One game out of my 17 or so game cards, I think is pretty good. Yeah. So we'll see it again. From what I remember of the third test I did when I caught the R button, is this console had no problems reading games. So I just want to, again, confirm that. Because if it has no problems now, I don't think it'll ever have a problem. So what I do for that is sort of stack my game cards right here. I'll take a game card and just insert it as I normally would. Just click it in, let it sit. It shows up. Then what I'll do is put my fingers on it and gently sort of shift the card side to side. There's a tiny bit of play in the game card slot. See if the game card disappears from the menu or disconnects, which it doesn't. Then I'll slowly increase the pressure while sort of jiggling it from side to side until I hit the actuation point, which clicks, just did. Still shifting it from side to side, and then just for fun, I go all the way until the game card bottoms out in the game card slot. This is way past the point of no return where the game card is ejecting one way or another, and it's reading it all the way through. So right now, it ejects. And then what I'll do is slap the back of the console against my open palm. This being maybe a little barbaric, but it sort of highlights what I hope is a realistic test of the console. Like if you were to be playing a game, close it, put it in the sleep, throw it in your backpack, and it just sort of rattles around. This will catch it from the game card disconnecting and, well, freezing your console or just completely shutting it off. It also catches the battery if there's an issue with the battery, whatever the issue might be, or maybe even like the battery connector, if there's just something wrong with it and the console just completely shuts off when I'm hitting the back of it, then that's also something that I try to catch. So that test kind of proves a few different faults. And since this is the era of video games where manual saves were common, or were the way of saving your game, losing progress because you accidentally set your console on a table would kind of suck. So I'm just going to repeat this test. Every time it's disappearing, I have the card ejected. It's just me sort of ejecting it, or injecting it, wiggling it all the way down, ejecting it, just sort of doing that a couple times. So I'm just going to do that for all of these game cards here. These game cards are in mostly good shape. They're all just kind of random cards that have drifted in with my junk consoles. But for the most part, they're all in pretty good shape. Hopefully they assume they sort of take the role of the average, where there's some game cards that are in better shape than others, and if it can read all these cards, it should read every card. No problem. I wonder if this was the same console that had... I just remember one of my blue consoles. I've done 4 blue consoles in a row, so they all kind of merge together. If I push towards the console while ejecting, it kind of hangs on it for a little bit. I don't really think that's not necessarily a problem. It might just be a quirk. Anyway. If I eject the card normally, it doesn't do that. It's only when it's sort of while I'm doing this test, because I'm kind of pressing against it. I'll just peg that as a quirk. Maybe the game card slot itself is... a little metal shielding is maybe bent a little. It's not impacting the actuation at all. It feels fine. Up until I tried to eject it, if I put pressure towards the console, it sort of catches a little. But the game cards are reading just fine. Just gonna check it again. I'm pretty sure, yeah, I've sank that entire... I can probably take a Q-tip to it just to see if it's hanging up on gunk. I don't think it is. Usually when I go around the console to clean the 3.5mm jack, I usually will take a Q-tip to the game card slot. I'll do that after this, because that doesn't impact the console's ability to read a game. And it is not completely unreasonable to think that I forgot to do those cleanings. Ooh, we're getting to a couple games that are a little more notorious for being difficult to read. I don't know what it is about this Dog Whisperer game, but sometimes it gives me problems. Seems to be doing good so far. Oh no. I just have 2 left. Alright. It's read every single game without problem. Let me turn this off, get these sort of off to the side, and then I'll hit the game card slot with a Q-tip. Now, hitting it with a Q-tip won't clean the pins. The pins are much deeper inside. I'm just kind of more worried about like the actual entrance to the game card slot. A little bit. I think there's more just metal. My last Q-tip. Grab another box. Try and get these corners. Not that bad at all. And then just kind of to keep track of what side of the Q-tip I used, I cut it off. Keep the unused side off to the side when I need it again, which I probably will. I use 91% alcohol, so it should dry up pretty quickly. I also didn't really use that much. It still kind of hangs on it a little, but I'm having to very intentionally press to the left. So but if I just sort of eject it, if I were to eject it normally, it's not hanging. It's only when I'm sort of pushing on it that it kind of snags for a second, but it will eject out. It doesn't get stuck. So I don't know I don't think it's hanging up on anything. It's not like my little SD card slot screw is not fully seated or anything. It might be the mechanism is sticking a little. You know what, if we're gonna go this far, and if that's gonna bother me, I should go ahead and look at it. The mechanism works, but when I'm putting that pressure on it, it is behaving differently, I suppose I should call it. It's not bad, I don't think. I would pass that off. Why did I get a text message? Oh. Something dumb. Like, really, the most I can do is just kind of dribble a little bit of rubbing alcohol on it to see if it's just something's caught up in it or something. I think of it as a bit of a non-issue, but it is not something I'm used to feeling. Let's just take the bottom shell off. Hmm. I'm gonna dribble a little bit of rubbing alcohol in there. To be very careful with this, actually. You know what, it would just be easier to use a game card. Sort of holding it at an angle because I don't want any of that rubbing alcohol going around to the bottom screen because that will damage it. Or the rubbing alcohol will infiltrate it and then that creates, well, water damages the screen to the point to where I can't use it. No, I'm not making it any better, but not making it any worse. Still ejects just fine. It's just sort of that one sort of scenario where if I put pressure on it, it doesn't come out with quite a lot of spunk. I've never had to grease any of these mechanisms. I really don't think they would ever need it. That might fix the issue, but I do not have anything that would be... I wouldn't even know what to get. Some type of, like, aerosol, or, like, liquid silicone grease or something that I can just dribble in there. Just a tiny bit. When I'm not doing that weird pressure to it, the mechanism feels fine. So, I think I'll just peg that as a quirk. I really can't see that impacting the console's performance in any way. It's just sort of a... Again, just kind of a quirk. I don't think every console does that. I just grab this random bloke. Oh, okay, I guess this one's even worse. But when you don't eject it normally, instead you kind of push it, it kind of gets snagged. Yeah, okay, this one's kind of the same. So that... Maybe it's less of a quirk and maybe just something I never noticed before. That makes me feel better. I'm just going to get a little bit of rubbing alcohol and rub those shoulder button contacts. Alright. Well, if anything, the game card slot is really nice and clean now. Sort of got the exclusive spa treatment. Yay, it still powers up. Alright, so the last test I can't perform, which is the Wi-Fi test. Now, that's basically just checking, does this thing connect to a Wi-Fi access point, which my Wi-Fi network, be it the band or the security, is just way too new for these DSi consoles, so it just simply won't connect to them. However, I can get it to connect to my phone, which can run on I think it's like a 2.4 gigahertz band, but I'm using my phone as my camera. So that's usually a test I perform after doing these videos. I've never had a console fail. So I'm not worried about it. I really don't even know what I would do if it fails. Probably replace the Wi-Fi card, which is a fairly benign, well, it's not a benign part by any stretch, but it's a part I can change relatively easily without impacting the performance of any other part of this console. With that said, since it's cleared everything, I can put on the screw covers and give it the sort of subjective condition score that I give all of my consoles to determine how much I value the console, how much I want to sell it for, and as well as just if there's any cosmetic damage that I need to report to, well, add in the report. Let me grab some gloves. Actually, I can do the glove part later. Screw protectors can be a little finicky. So I just have my pill box full of them, not the white ones. And I'll just kind of grab a clump that all are about in similar condition, more or less. That is one too many upper screw cover. Take one off. Need one more foot. This guy looks like I covered in Elmer's glue. Try and pick that off. I know I've put a couple consoles on sale that I ended up having to take off of sale due to issues. Probably came off the one that had yellowed displays, which I understand being a turn-off for people, but it was something I wanted to try. Because a lot of the times yellow displays are kind of a death sentence. But it's possibly something I can remedy by changing the backlights out, but that's a fairly intricate process that poses a lot of risks. So I'm only going to resort to that when I run out of displays that aren't yellowed, or only very mildly yellowed. Just separating all the upper screen screw covers first. Okay. So what I do to put these on is I just take normal Elmer's glue. I'm going to pop the cap off and create negative pressure in it so it doesn't just goober out everywhere on me. And then what I'll do is squeeze it so it just starts to form a bubble at the end. And then I'll just touch the top of these screws. Just enough to deposit just a little bit of adhesive, or a little bit of glue. You don't want too much or else it'll ooze out the side, which isn't a problem, but it's a little bit of a pain to clean up. That looks good. These upper screw covers don't experience any mechanical stress, so I'm not too worried about them popping out. Elmer's glue should be more than enough to just sort of hold them in place. And then each screw cover kind of has a directionality to them. There's the back side where the adhesive's stuck. Kind of tell it's a little shiny, and then there's sort of the more dulled, plasticky look to them. And we want that dull, plasticky look up, or facing up. Just kind of move them into position and then just kind of squeeze them down. Sometimes some glue will come up, just depending on how the screw cover kind of flops in there. That one went in really strange. I need to take it out. If I had to make a bold guess, I think maybe I need to screw in the screw a little more. Let me grab my newer pry tool. That has a sharper end. No, it's in all the way. No, it's definitely not sitting in there right. It's like bulging out a little. I'm not really sure why. Let's take it out again. See if I can sort of determine what's going on. Screw cover itself looks fine. I wonder if the adhesive sticker is still on it and maybe it's like binding up or something. I don't think it's the screw. It looks like the tape is still on, the double-sided tape. I'm trying to peel it off. But my poor tweezers are been bent so much, they're not really helping me here. But I have fingernails for that. I won't drop it. It's becoming quite the endeavor. Almost there. There we go. That little sticker. Hope that was enough. Alright, let me grab a little more glue. There might be just a tiny bit left on the end right now. Perfect. Well, let's see how this goes in now. Okay, that's sitting in there a lot better. Looks like I may have added a little too much glue on this one. Kind of oozes out and dries up. It's easy to pick off, but it's not a good look. Okay. Fairly happy with that. Now, the back screw covers, the little feet, are a little different because they experience mechanical stress. I mean, when you place the console on a table and kind of shift it around, the feet are going to have to stay on. So I add a fairly significant more amount of glue. Or like a drop. Just sort of do that. Some of the times these feet will still have their stickers on, sort of unlike the top screen screw covers that I just dealt with. I don't necessarily have to worry about them being recessed far enough, because I think the minor difference should be somewhat unnoticeable. Unless you put it on like a completely flat surface and it rocks, which I really don't think I've ever tried doing that. I wouldn't exactly consider that a problem. Okay. But then I'll kind of look at it from the side to see if all those feet are kind of same height. Mostly, for the most part. I don't know if I would be able to spot any variations that are minor enough. Now I put on the gloves. Hopefully not rip a big hole in these. These gloves are not very stretchy. Okay, so now what I'll do is just give the console a quick wipe down. I'll take my sort of designated, I think it was the pink one that I've been using. I don't remember. Doesn't really matter. Take a microfiber cloth, grab some distilled water, pipe it up with a syringe, just kind of dribble it all over. Get it moist but not saturated. I'll just sort of knead it around in my hand to spread the moisture. And I'll just sort of give it just a good old once over. rub off any of my hand oils, and especially on like the screens, I'll take off all my fingerprints. And I suppose this glossy shell piece, but if you haven't already spotted, this glossy shell piece is not in the best shape, as it usually is with glossy shell pieces. And I'll take a dry one and just sort of give it not so much of a polish, but just wipe off any excess. A very small amount of distilled water dries pretty quickly. I'll just kind of keep this dry one handy for when I have to wipe off the screens. I'm in a rather dusty environment, so I'll probably have to do that quite a few times. Okay. So now we get to the physical condition assessment. So this will be sort of the subjective assessments that I do. I try to be as thorough and accurate as I can, but they are subjective. They are completely subjective, and they're a lot of times I feel like it can just be subject to my mood and what I deem as bad or good. Yeah, unfortunately, I can't really do an objective measure of all this unless I like counted scratches and said if it has like X amount of scratches, then it equates to this. But especially when you get to the glossy shell piece, like you can tell this one has quite a lot of marks. It almost looks like it slid across, not so much pavement, but just across like maybe even pavement. I don't know. Just sort of went like that. But I'm not going to count all those. Let's just say that. And then what do you determine a scratch? Because there can be really light hair scratches to like these guys down here. Like, holy moly. So, yeah, it's all subjective. So, sort of following that, the first assessment is the physical condition of the shell, which is the four main shell pieces in the condition that they're in. So as I was kind of pointing out, this glossy shell piece is in pretty rough shape. There are some, again, it almost looks like it was dragged along asphalt. There's just very, like, somewhat deep vertical scratches where my fingernail is catching on some of these. None of it is blocking the camera sensor, surprisingly enough. It's close, but the camera sensor still works. Thankfully, none of those scratches impacted the camera. But you can just tell this one's in pretty rough shape. It's not covered in like light scratches, like there's still a bit of glossiness to it, but it looks like it was in good shape. It slid across pavement or asphalt, and then now it's here. What happened to it? No clue. That's how I got it. Looking at the sort of the upper portion of the shell housing, there's a scratch right there behind the LED diffuser. It's a little hard to see. Looking around the back, and it's a little chewed up right here. This piece looks good. There's a couple little marks, nothing really noteworthy. A little bit of discoloration right there if my camera decides to focus. A little bit of the blue showing through. Ooh, this side looks really nice. There's a mark right there. Small marks. Not really much around the edges at all. I think it's just mainly that glossy shell piece. Ooh, and this back shell piece is in very good shape. There are a couple little marks. There's a little mark right there. That might even come off, but no, it looks like a impression in the plastic. But I would say that's pretty darn good. Yeah, there's another one right there. Just little, tiny little marks. The shell pieces, this upper shell piece is in very good shape. I don't notice anything. Looks like there's a little bit of a mark right there, like right where the screen meets the shell. Almost like pry marks. Hopefully that wasn't because of me, but very minor. And then for this shell piece, it looks like interesting pattern. I wonder what game caused that. So around the A and Y button, you can kind of see how it almost glistens. My best theory is it's just because of a finger going back and forth across it for who knows how many hundreds of hours and just wearing down that plastic. Or maybe somebody who owned this before had like especially greasy hands. Maybe that just eroded the way the plastics or these consoles are made for kids, so kids are gross. There's a little bit of that on the D-pad as well, but what's interesting is it's only the left and the right. So I wonder what game caused this, because usually with the D-pad, it's usually all the way around. It's just like a halo around the D-pad, but in this case, it's almost just like the left and the right. Very odd. Okay. But every shell piece has a little bit of damage, save for the top screen. For the most part, I'm not going to worry about that tiny bit of... It's a little hard to make out, but every shell piece, with kind of the exception of this upper piece, was damaged. But for the most part, with the exception of the glossy shell, it's in very good shape. Like this wear around the buttons is normal. Oh, I never clipped down this. There are little plastic tabs here that I need to clip down. There we go. So I think because of that, I'll give it a 1. It's okay. It's good. I think very good is stretching it, especially considering the top glossy shell piece. So what I will write is glossy shell, has deep vertical scratches. Like it slid on asphalt. Oh god, here, me being incompetent, I don't know how to spell asphalt. I think it's PH. Oh, I was right. Okay, cool. Like it slid on asphalt. Marks around edges. And wear around D-pad and A, X, Y buttons. So yeah, I gave it a 1 out of 3, which is sort of second from the bottom. I think if I were to give it a fair, the other shell pieces would have to be in worse shape, but since the other shell pieces were in pretty good shape, all things considered, I think good is a reasonable assessment. So next is the physical condition of the hardware, which is the buttons and the screw covers. So face buttons look good. The D-pad has some extremely light scratching on it. I don't even know if I'll be able to get that to show up. No, not really. Very light, like I really have to look for them. This screw cover is still kind of having a problem. It just kind of looks like it's like bulging up a little, but it's in there. And these other screw covers are undamaged, so they're in good shape. They're just, again, kind of the consequence of me having to re-stick them. Sometimes they don't go back in perfectly, but they should stay in, and they do their job of masking the top of the screws. Shoulder buttons are in very good shape. Just sort of wiping them off. I see one mark on the L button. Let me see if I can get that to even show up. There it is. Just one little scratch. Volume buttons are also fine. And the lower screw covers I'm not so worried about. Looks like there is a little bit of Elmer's glue back here that I can try and pick off. It oozed out the side a little. Perfect. One mark on the L button, which very minor. All the other buttons are in good shape. I think I'll give it an excellent. So, let me look at the D-pad again. I can barely make out those scratches. If they're almost... I don't even think they're worth mentioning. Small scratch on L button. Alright, the physical condition of the screens. Now that is the screen covers. That would be the bottom screen digitizer and the upper screen lens. Not the LCDs themselves. So I did notice, I don't know if it's like a hair or something that's underneath the top screen lens. There's going to be a lot of dots. I'm in a rather dusty environment, so a lot of those dots are just fresh dust falling on it right now. My poor camera is going to have a very hard time capturing a glossy screen, but there is just that hair. Now, I don't see it when the console's on. It's not distorting any pixels. So I have really no reason to risk taking off the top screen lens to invite more dust and debris underneath that lens. So if it's just that one hair, I'm okay with it. There is some very light dust and debris underneath the lens, but that hair definitely sticks out. For the bottom screen, I do notice some marks. I failed to note if this was OEM or a new digitizer. Let me just recheck this footage real quick. I can tell that based off of the ribbon cable connector for the touchscreen. Aftermarket ones use sort of that orange. Oh, this is OEM. Perfect. So then I'm inclined to believe that these are like some minor scratches on the OEM digitizer, which don't impact the performance of the digitizer, but several small scratches and a hair. Thinking it's not that bad. I think I'll do very good. It's not excellent. Hair under upper screen lens. Light scratching on bottom screen. All right, then the last test is the screen condition. Now these are that is actually looking at the displays themselves, the LCD displays. I turned my light off for this so I can see them better. And what I'm looking for is how do the colors match on the two displays, and if there's any yellowing. The yellowing one can be really hard to tell if it's very minor. And I don't see anything. I think these screens are perfect. My poor camera is having a hard time dealing with the sudden flashing light. Yeah, these screens are in great shape. Excellent. Well, excellent. I say it's excellent because that's awesome, and excellent because that's the rating I'll give it. Alright, so let's see what I got here. So I have the physical condition of the shell, good, mainly because that glossy shell piece was in bad shape. Like it found asphalt at one point. Buttons are great, excellent. Physical condition of the screens, very good, and excellent. So 3, 6, 9. What does a 9 give it? Right about smack dab in the middle of the very good category. Which I agree. Today is the 7th. And before I sign off on it, I will test the Wi-Fi, but I'll do that after my videos because I'm going to have to take my phone off of my little jig that I have set up. So, up until then, all passes all the tests, just have to confirm Wi-Fi, and then I'll sign off on it. Thinking, I think this is good. Okay, cool. So now I'm going to do my more isolated final score video, which I just do right after. I just like that so I don't have to edit that rambling portion where I was doing the condition assessment. As it goes, I can just sort of recap everything I just did. And I kind of set everything up like this.